Hi everyone, Elizabeth Grimm here of Elizabeth Grimm Consulting. I support purpose-driven organizations in their learning, evaluation, and strategy work so that they can do their great work even better and make bold decisions with data. This week, I was really inspired by a video that the Weather Channel put out telling the story about the diminishing air quality in the New York area as a result of the smoke coming in from the wildfires in Canada. So I wanted to know if I could recreate this in PowerPoint, and that is what I'm going to share with you today. So you can see here that this is the graphic that kind of is where the Weather Channel video ended, and this is the time lapse that we're going to make. So you can see that really in just a 3-hour span of time from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m., the air quality just diminished significantly. And all we need to do this are pictures, some text boxes, some rectangle shapes, and then some animations and transitions that we'll add at the end. Now, if you are telling a story about maybe the way that your community has changed in the way it looks over time, or telling some story about how something has changed across the seasons, or in this case, with the Weather Channel, the progression of air quality over time, you might already have access to those images that show that progression. Because I didn't, I had to create sort of a workaround by adding these different shapes. You might not have to do that, so I'll show you kind of a couple different options. But the first thing we need is our New York skyline. I pulled this in from Pixabay or Unsplash or Pexels online. Those are 3 sources that I like to use for open source images, but you can also just grab an image right from PowerPoint by going to Insert, Pictures, Stock Images, and then you can search anything that you're looking for and it will come up with a bunch of different options. We'll stick with the image that I already pulled here in New York. Now in that original image from the Weather Channel, they had 9 different time periods here. So we need to create those boxes. All we're going to do is insert a rectangular shape, and then I divided my total slide size by 9, and that gives us 1.48 inches. And it was our slide's 7.5 inches tall. And I'll just drag that over to the left to be our first one. It doesn't matter what our shape fill is now because we'll be changing that. Our color, the shape fill is the color of our shape. But I do want a white outline. So I go to Shape Outline on our Shape Format toolbar, change it to white, and then I want it a little thicker than the default. So I go back to Shape Outline and I'm going to change the weight to 2.14. To get our 9 rectangles across the slide, I am just literally going to copy this and paste this. Let's see, how many do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. One more. Okay, and now we're just going to use our alignment tool. So I'm going to click the top box, go to, again, our Shape Format toolbar, go to Arrange. This is my favorite functionality in PowerPoint. Align, and we are going to align this box to the slide all the way to the right. See, it pulled it all the way to that right end of the slide. I also want to arrange it to the top of the slide. Okay. Oops. So now let's click all of our shapes again just by holding down the Shift key and clicking all of our boxes. Go back to Arrange, Align, and we want to distribute them equally across our slide. So distribute horizontally. You can see how that moved it across the slide. Go back to Arrange, and we want to align them to the top of our slide. And there we have it. We have 9 boxes that are equidistant across our slide to give us that time-lapse effect. Now, here's where your process and my process could look differently. If you already have images that you can show the same image in different time periods, you would just change the fill of that shape by right-clicking the shape, going to Format Shape, and then you would go to Picture Fill and select whatever picture you're looking at and then crop it to fit your shape. And then you would have to adjust that so that you're looking at kind of that progression over time for each of your images. I don't have the luxury of having access to the different images from the Weather Channel, so we are going to use a gradient, a color gradient. So I'm going to go back to Format Shape. You can right-click and get to Format Shape like we just did, or you can use our Shape Format toolbar and change the fill. I need to go to Fill Colors, and I'm going to use our eyedropper tool to pick the color from the Weather Channel's original image. And I'm just going to do that by hovering our eyedropper over the original image on each of their 9 boxes. And again, if you want to do it in the Format Shape toolbar, you can do it this way too, just as I'm showing here on the screen. And we're just going to change that color 9 times. So I've already done that for you here, and we can again see gray to orange. Now the story here is about the air quality, and so we want to be able to see or not see the New York skyline behind the picture as they had, to show sort of how dense that smoke was. And to do that, we need to change the transparency. Again, we would go to our shape formatting tool and changing the transparency. So 0% transparency, we can't see any of the picture behind our text boxes. And at 100% transparency, we can see the picture and we can't see the color shape on top. So here I just have to kind of guesstimate about what the transparency is for each of those different time periods. And I think we're maybe around 20-ish for the beginning and maybe 4% transparency. We can just barely see the skyline when the smoke was so bad in that orange. And you would adjust that transparency for each square to show that progression, just like that. So you can see here, you can again see in that first time period, the smoke was bad, but we could still see, and by the time we get to that later time point, the smoke was orange, and we could barely make out anything in that skyline. Next, we would just add text boxes to timestamp each of the periods to really help tell that story of how quickly these changes were happening. Again, just a 3-hour time spot with most of the changes happening in that last hour, the 1 to 2 p.m. time period. And you could also add a text box to tell a takeaway story. And stopping here could be a great way to show, really tell that story about what is happening and just show visually that progression over time. So I don't know about you, but I've never seen orange air quality before. So this would be really jarring to me, both in person and also if someone was describing this to me in a presentation or a talk. If you wanted to get a little snazzier, we could really show this transition or time lapse over time by having things kind of fly in on the screen, like similar to what the original creator did. So we have to do a few tricks for that. So I'm going to zoom out so you can really see what I'm doing. So we're going to zoom out to 30, well, 33 is probably a little hard for you to see anything. Let's zoom to 66. Okay. So first what we have to do is we have to set up our slides to start this transition. So what I've done is I have copied and pasted our rectangles and I've put a step below our slide. So this is our slide here with the picture that we're working on. And the things on the right and below are kind of our guiding tools. The bottom has become a grid guide so that we can make sure we're lining things up exactly right when we bring them onto the slide. And everything to the right of our slide, that's what we're going to have fly in to give that sense of time lapse and movement. So our starting time is 11 a.m. So we would just copy and paste 11 a.m. right on our slide, keep it exactly the way that it is. And then everything from here on out is just duplication, duplication, duplication. So we are going to right-click our slide, duplicate our slide, and we are going to pull in the next time period by literally holding the side of that rectangle and just dragging it over. This is where our grid lines at the bottom come in handy because we want to see that it's in alignment where we're stopping. And then we will drag our timestamp over too. We want to keep our timestamp right in alignment, and a great way to do that is hold the Shift key down, click on our text box, and drag it over. That will keep everything in that same line. All right, time to duplicate again. So we're going to first shrink our box, the 11:30 time box, again using those grid lines we've created. And then we're going to drag our 12 p.m. time slot over, stopping at our grid lines, and moving the time period over. And we are just going to keep doing that until we're done. So you can see here over on the left side of the screen, I've just recreated that over and over and over and over again until we get to the 2 p.m. time slot. If we want things to fly in, instead of just showing up like this, clicking through the new slide, 11, 11:30, 12, it's powerful there too. But if we want to add some movement, we would click all of our slides and we would add a morph transition. I've already done that here. And that will have our sort of our color overlay just kind of swoop in just really seamlessly. And then the original creator created some really cool text animations. So we could add those too if you want, where the text appears letter by letter for the timing. We can add that animation by clicking on our text, going to animations. I want that text to fly in, so I'm going to click the fly in animation. Go to our animation pane to make adjustments. You can see here I've already done it, so I'm going to delete the old one so you can see what I'm doing. We want this text to fly in from the right. Right now it's going to fly in from the bottom. So let's change that. Fly in from the right. I want to start it with the previous transition, the previous adjustment. I think we're going to keep it pretty fast. And then we want to animate the text by letter. So it's going to come in as each of the different numbers or letters in the 11:30 time text box. And we will make that change to every single one of those slides to add that text. What that will give us is this. It's going to give us that motion, that sense of motion, of really seeing those changes. And the text flying in just kind of gives that sense again of time changing over time. You don't need to do it, but it does kind of add some nice movement and transition here to give that sense of a time lapse. And you can save this here as a PowerPoint or as an image for social media, or you could save it as a movie again to just see that time lapse happening. And if you want, you can also end with adding a text box like we did before. Another cool thing that you could do, again, if you want to increase storytelling, is for each of these different periods, you could add a text box with a quote that someone might have said about their experience or the air quality at that time to really say more and give the picture of what people's experience was actually living through that moment. So there you have it. that's how you create a time lapse in PowerPoint. And all we needed to do that was some pictures, shapes, text boxes, and then a little bit of morph transition and some text animation. I am so excited for you to start playing around with this, and I hope you'll share back with how you've used this tool and any questions you might have. Thanks, everyone.